Welcome to Living English at the Houston Public Library, a 25-lesson language learning program that focuses on how you work, play, and interact with others in your everyday life. Hello, my name is Ryan Bowden from the Houston Public Library. Welcome to Living English at HPL. Today, we're going to be discussing one of my favorite things, going to a restaurant. It's a lot of fun. So let's jump right in. First off, I want to talk about types of restaurants because you can go to eat at a lot of different places. You might go to a fine dining establishment, right? Someplace that's more fancy with waiters and tablecloths and all kinds of nice things like that. Or you might go to some place that's informal, like a diner, right? That's a casual type of restaurant. Or a fast food restaurant. If you're from Houston, you've definitely seen a lot of these. You might go to a cafe, right? Have some coffee and maybe a sandwich. Or you could try one of our many food trucks, which is a lot of fun. So there are a lot of types of restaurants. We're not going to get into this a lot today, but just be aware that they exist. All right, here we go. So first we're going to talk about staff at a restaurant. The first person you might encounter, especially at one of those fine dining establishments, is the host or the hostess. That's the person that greets you when you first come in, and they typically will show you to your table. So that's the host or the hostess. The host being the masculine, hostess being the feminine. There's the chef or the cook, right? These are the people who work back in the kitchen. They are working hard and preparing your food. So the chef or the cook. The chef is usually the person who is in charge, right? Then cooks also work in the kitchen. You'll have a waiter or a waitress. We can also call this a server, right? So this person is going to take your order and make sure you get what you want. And then we have the bartender. This is the person making the drinks, usually alcoholic drinks, but oftentimes, they can be soft drinks as well. So this gentleman right here is pouring some drinks at the bar. He is the bartender. Great. So a few other things you might need to know. Well, the simple thing, the menu. You're going to take a look at the menu and you're going to choose what you would like to eat and drink. And this will vary based on where you are. You might have a really long menu or a simple one-page menu like we see up in the corner there. Once you've decided, you can order. I know that guy. You can order, and this is at a fast food restaurant. You can order at a counter perhaps, or you might tell your server if you're sitting at a table. Your meal will come shortly after that. So the meal is all of the food that you order. This will include sometimes a number of different items, right? But it's the entirety of what you have ordered is going to be your meal. And then finally, once you've gotten your meal, you may eat or dine, right? You are eating or dining, like this gentleman right here enjoying his food and drink. Great. Okay, so where do you want to sit? When you get into a restaurant, they might ask you where you would like to sit. You might have that option. You might choose a table, right? So we have a number of tables in the center of the restaurant with chairs around them. Each of those is covered by a tablecloth. Or you might choose to sit in a booth. It's a little more cozy, a little more intimate to sit in a booth, right? So these are booths. You may go and sit at the bar. At a lot of restaurants, you can sit at the bar and you could eat there as well and order a drink. And someplace you're probably not going to sit, but is still very important, is the kitchen. That is where your food is going to be coming from. So at some restaurants, you can see back into the kitchen. Others, you can't, but it's there, and that's where all the hard work is being done. Okay, so what's on the menu? Well, beverages are probably going to be on the menu. What would you like to drink? And this is a question you'll often be asked by your server before they ask you for your food. So would you like a drink first? Well, let's see what else is on there. Let's go down to appetizer. The appetizer is the food you would order first, right? You would order this before your main course or your entree. So we have a little appetizer, some bruschetta down there in the corner. The entree, or the main course, as it's typically called in the United States, that's going to be the main meal that you are eating, the primary item in your meal, right? So here we have some nice fish, which is great. And then finally, when you're done with your meal, you may ask for some dessert. This is my favorite part, right? So something sweet is typically what we associate with dessert, whether it's cake or pie or flan. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. And when we are all done, it's time to pay. So the check or the bill is what you'll expect to get from your server. So when you have to pay for your meal, you will ask for the check or the bill. May I have the check, please? If you're sitting at a bar and you're just drinking, you may ask for your tab. This is another informal way of asking for the check, but it usually relates to a bar and not necessarily to eating or sitting at a table. So a tab, more often used at the bar. That is a heck of a tab right there. I don't want that one. Now, when you're paying, you're going to consider your service, right? How was the service at the restaurant? Was it good service? Was it a happy, helpful server like the one we have over in the corner here? Well, if that's the case, then you're going to want to tip. Tipping is customary in the United States, and usually we start at about 15% and we go up from there. So we tip because unfortunately people who are servers in our restaurants make a little over $2 an hour. So usually we tip, to let them know they did a great job and we enjoyed our meal. So 15% being the bottom, and then you would go up from there. So tipping, very, very important. All right, so let's practice here. We have a restaurant scene, a casual type restaurant, and we see there are 3 circles. A circle over here by this seat, and there's a circle by these seats, and there's a circle up here by this seat. So what I'd like to know is what kind of seats are these? If you walked into this restaurant, what would you say if you wanted to sit here or here or here? Take a second and practice on your own. Okay, how'd we do? Well, that's the bar, and this is a bar stool or a bar seat, right? Not all bars have to have alcohol. The bar is just this type of seating right here. And then we have a table. We have a bunch of freestanding tables happening right here in the middle of the restaurant. And then finally, if you'd like to sit by the window, you could sit in a booth like this one. So that is a booth. Great job. Let's try another one. So we have this person right here holding some food items. So who is this person and what are these food items? All right, what do we think? Well, that's going to be our waitress or our server, right? So waitress, or you could just say the server. That looks like a dessert, specifically some kind of ice cream sundae is what it looks like. But that would be a dessert. And this right here, that's an entree or a main course. An entree or a main course. Now, it's important to remember that all of this together, this is going to be our meal. So the server is bringing us our meal, right? So dessert, entree, together, that's our meal. Great job. And then the last one, we have this gentleman right here. What is going on? Who is he? What is that? And why is there some money sitting on the bar right there? What's that all about? Let's try it out. Okay, well, that is our bartender, right? That gentleman is our bartender. And what is he serving? He's serving a beverage. Specifically, that looks like a cold beer, but he is serving us a beverage. And then finally, what's this money doing over here? It's just a couple dollars. Well, that's most likely a tip. Somebody probably left a tip for the bartender right there on the bar, which is great. So he's doing a good job, is what we know from this picture. All right, so let's get into some grammar. Modal verbs is something we have covered in the past. These are very important when you are going to a restaurant. Why is that? Because modal verbs are used to show respect. They convey a certain type of respect to people, right? Because when we use modal verbs, what we're doing is we're showing ability, we're asking permission, we're asking for advice, showing obligation, or possibility. And all these are very, very important. Why is that? Well, for ability, can or could. We can make a reservation for dinner tonight, right? Or we could make the reservation for next week. It's showing that possibility of going out, the ability to do something. Permission, very, very important. Can, could, or may. Can I sit by the window, like in that booth that we saw earlier? Advice. You might want some advice from your server, right? Should I have this or should I have that? So should I have the chicken or the fish? Which one is better? You're asking their advice. And a good server will probably help you out, right? That's what we want. Obligation. Must or have to. You must wash your hands before returning to work. So if you are a server at a restaurant, you must wash your hands. In fact, they usually have signs saying that. And then finally, possibility. Might, may, could, or can. Can I take your order is a very common question in a restaurant. Can I take your order? Now, it's important to point out that might is much more common in British English than American English, but it is not incorrect. So, might is, yeah, like I said, closer to British English than American English. Okay, so let's practice this now. So, up here we have a few phrases, and I want to know, are these respectful or not? Should we be using these in a restaurant setting or not? So I'll give you a moment, read through them, and decide which one is respectful and which one maybe we should change. Okay, go ahead. Okay, here we go. Can I have my hamburger without onions? Absolutely, right? You're using that modal verb can to ask permission. Now, is it your hamburger? And should you be able to decide if it has onions or not? Of course, but we're still trying to be respectful because we're speaking to another person. Take this away. I do not want it. Unfortunately not. Now, if you don't want it, it should be taken away, but we're still going to ask the server and be polite, right? So could you please take this away? Might be better. Can I get you any dessert this evening? This is something a server might ask you. Absolutely. This is what we would like to hear from a server, right? Split the check so we can pay separately. Fortunately not. This is more of an order or a command. Could you split the check? Might be better. Or might you split the check? If you're using that British English. I want a kids menu. That's something a child might say, but that's not very respectful, right? Could I have a kids menu would be much better. Could I have that booth by the window? That's a great question. And yes, it is respectful, right? So if you see an open table, you may want to sit in one place versus another. So could I have that booth by the window is great. May I have a table for two? Absolutely. Again, this is a good one, right? So there are two of you in your party and you would like to dine there, right? May I have a table for two? Then finally, this is cold, get me something else. Now, nobody wants to eat cold food. Well, sometimes you do, but you might not want to eat cold food, but that's probably not the best way to ask, right? So could I have something else might be a better way to handle that situation. So I hope this helps. This has been a quick intro to going to a restaurant. We hope you check back soon. Thank you so much for joining us and have a great day.